According to iSeeCars.com, they ran a poll of about 900,000 vehicles ranging from 2012 to 2013 and polled about 16% of the general population. Consumers own that vehicle for over 10 years. Guess what? I'm going to do one better. We're going to get into vehicles that were at the top of the heap, starting with the bottom of the number 10, working to number 1. Let's go. Life's too short to drive boring cars. It's the first vehicle clearly on the list that a lot of people have loved to own. They're a love-to-hate type vehicle. Those that love them, get it. Those that don't, well, you would never buy one. 30.5% of owners of these buying them new will probably keep them over 10 years, just because they're low cost to service, low cost of maintenance, super cheap on fuel, 1.8 liter 4-cylinder engine, connected up to an CVT transmission, continuously variable. It does have the hybrid technology, allows you to cruise around on battery power and keep things simple and cheap for the long run. Space for 4, you have the rear trunk or hatch, so you can haul a lot of material around in there. It's an easy vehicle to live with, and clearly one that a lot of people, that once they buy them, they just say, you know what, no point getting rid of it. It's not the best looking vehicle, but it serves a purpose. It's super cheap, and about a third people end up keeping them over 10 years. The second most satisfactory vehicles that customers have found and kept them over for 10 years is this little vehicle right here. What do we have? Clearly a Honda. This ranks at 30.7% of these vehicles have been around for over 10 years by the original owner. Yeah, there's lots to like about this generation. Number one, of course, it has a naturally aspirated 4-cylinder, 2.4 liters, makes a slightly meager 185 horsepower, but it also comes from a time before CVT, when Honda was using a 5-speed automatic torque converter transmission, where they were a lot more robust than the current generation CVTs. They were also quite simple, 2-wheel drive, all-wheel drive. You had other features that made them very affordable to maintain. Oil changes could be done for 70 bucks. Light bulbs were changed for 5 bucks. Tires were small and affordable. Plastics were easy and hard wearing, as well as handles never broke. Interiors were simple but lasted forever because no high gloss finishing, and all the materials were very robust. Lots of great plastic to help protect the body panels. They had great design themes so people didn't get quickly bored by the overall look of the particular vehicle. But these have always been enjoyed because they're very low cost in running on fuel, cheap on maintenance, and most people, by the time they got bored of them, they just handed to their son, their daughter, possibly their grandkids. They were just easy to keep around. They never broke, and when they did, it was a small cheap part to replace. Just a very simple vehicle that you could never go wrong, the CR-V. Another vehicle on the list is this little vehicle here. Back in 2012, 2013, Lexus was going through that awkward transition where they didn't have the big grills, but they also didn't have some of the hot technology. They were moving into this world of hybrid, and that's what we're talking about here. What we're looking at here is an ES generation of Lexus, which has always been very popular and reliable. Of course, you have basic wheels, and you do have that nice LC500 type mirror, chrome handles with easy access in, of course a little sunroof, and a little shark fin on the back. Down around the back end, you see pretty robust looking tail lights. Now, it was a little bit blonde looking back in this generation, but reliability was its game. And the interior was quite nice. Even though it was slightly basic, it was well put together and was built to last. Had a few nice amenities like burl wood as well as chrome trim. But at 31.1% of the owners owning this vehicle for over 10 years meant that it was very, very popular. Why? Well, it had the 2.5 liter Toyota 4-cylinder engine. It was naturally aspirated, which meant that it was very reliable and easy to maintain. It was also strapped to CVT, so it was a hybrid, PHEV if you will, plug-in hybrid electric vehicle, and of course it had the CVT transmission, so no fixed gearing. It was a very basic vehicle to run. It was relatively low cost, relatively easy to maintain, and people just loved driving them. They were quiet and peaceful. High levels of durability just meant it was an easy car to have around, and you could have that upscale luxury brand name in your park in your garage and not worry like you driving a V12 Mercedes-Benz and you're gonna break the bank just owning that thing. This was an easy car to own, and therefore makes our list. And another fourth slot actually goes to this little rig right here. Yes, 31.2% of owners who have purchased one of these Subarus have clearly held onto this vehicle for at least 10 years. And it's just one of those vehicles that's so easy to use. Subaru's garnered some reputation for reliability, durability, simplicity, and clearly it's the type of vehicle that does it all. With all-wheel drive systems that are legendary, that get you through snow and mud and ice and get you from A to B safely. You also have the practicality of these Subarus. I mean, everything on this vehicle is relatively basic and simple, but it's all easy to fix. Easy headlights, projector lamps, simple. Oil services on that 4-cylinder engine, simple. The 3.6 I'd say stay away from, but basically these engines that you find in this particular model are quite stout. Basic handles, they don't break either, and you got a roof rack which allows the versatility of putting stuff on top. Of course, you have this massive trunk, and people love that too, the versatility to haul 2, 5, and even more, your dog and your couch and everything else back here. So it represents a very practical vehicle. Again, as I say, all-wheel drive, simple parts, reliability. Because it's made in Japan, people love these vehicles. And it's one of those vehicles they'll literally drive till the wheels fall off, or they'll just hand it down to their kids or their grandkids, very similar to what you see in Toyotas. And the 5th slot goes to one with 31.7% of its population and ownership group keeping these past 10 years on the first go-around, because they're just so easy to own. And it's clearly a Volkswagen here. As we look, we notice it's a very compact little unit, stout. You got space in the back, seating for 5 people. You can get an inline 5 2.5 liter engine that makes way over 150, not quite 200 horsepower. You could also get a turbo diesel 4-cylinder, and you could also get a manual gearbox or a shiftable automatic. People have always liked the Golf, even though this is a GTI, a shrunken down miniature version of a Golf, but essentially Golf looks very similar. You have a small hatch space in the back, lots of capacity. It's a very sporty looking unit that's great on fuel and fun to drive, and clearly has kept a strong following. And the number 6 slot goes to a vehicle like we're looking right here. Now this is Lexus, but it's essentially a rebadged Land Cruiser by Toyota. Yeah, the Land Cruiser back in 2012 and 2013 had very much consistent drivetrains as we're looking at right here. We're looking at the GX460 right here, and clearly the Land Cruiser was very similar. Let's take a look. I mean, a lot of people loved it because of its large, girthy size. A lot of people wanted to get into larger SUVs, and it satisfied the bill. You had lots of seating capacity there. You had a naturally aspirated V8 engine in there, 4.6 liters for the Land Cruiser, that made about 234 horsepower, and it actually was made it up to a 6-speed automatic transmission, meant it always was in the sweet spot, low revs, making decent fuel economy when you weren't driving it really hard. Had lots of great, amazing technology, which meant they're superbly amazing off-road, better than most other manufacturers when it gets right down to it. Of course, it had the Lexus quality, the Toyota quality and reliability that everybody loves. And other than the fact that it was a little heavy and thirsty on fuel, the fact remains there was very little to go wrong. Yeah, you might have the odd coolant leak, water pump problem, but generally speaking, these vehicles were built for 1.3 million miles. They were good to go for many, many miles, and people just did not want to get rid of them. They didn't rust, they didn't wear out, they didn't die, they just kept running. A lot of great technology, but yet, back in 2012, it wasn't overblown yet. I mean, clearly we had still a fairly simple set of headlights, and the grille was not overblown yet on any of the Land Cruisers or the Lexus products. That naturally has to be V8 was very durable, and the interior was also well made. Easy to use, handles and knobs never broke. Beautiful roof racks, easy to live with. You had sunroof and all the amenities in a lot of their vehicles. Great off-roading prowess. This vehicle is just a workhorse, and the Toyota Land Cruiser at 32.7% customer satisfaction after 10 years meant that most of these hung around for the long haul. Another car that made number 7 slot. 33.8% of the owners have kept it beyond 10 years because it's an easy car to live with. And we're looking at the Volkswagen Passat right here. It's a good mid-sized car, clearly has some basic set of headlights, a little simpler to maintain than its big brother Audi brand. Of course, we do have smaller sets of wheels, alloy, of course, basic set of mirrors, and the interior is almost as nice as an Audi, but minus a few little extras, making it a little simpler vehicle to look after. It does have sunroof and all of the other technology, easy access in, cycle to the back. Everything is just a little simpler from its big brother Audi. And that brings us to the other reason why a lot of people buy these. There's a lot of great choices for engine and drivetrain configurations. Sure, you can get yourself a turbo inline 4 turbo diesel. You can also get your V6 3.6, makes about 280 horsepower. You can also get a beautiful little inline 5 2.5 liter that makes about 170 horsepower. Lots of great options. You can get manual 5, 6 speeds. You can get automatic transmission torque converters, as well as double clutch gearboxes. So a lot of different configurations depending on the drivetrain and the engine that you select. There's lots of choices. It's a good mid-sized luxury motoring sedan that drives like an Audi without all the added complexity, as well as a lot of the dollars associated with driving the luxury brand. Go with something a little simpler like this. Chassis and drivetrains, many of them are overlapped with a lot of the Audi brands. These are great, and that's why a lot of people have kept them around beyond 10 years. And the 8th slot goes to this little hot rod here, and everybody knows a Toyota Camry is an unoffensive, easy to live with car for the long haul. Now, it's the hybrid specifically is the one that really hits home for a lot of owners, because clearly about 34.6 owners of brand new Camrys back in 2012 or 13 were satisfied enough to keep it around for at least 10 years, and they're still driving them currently today. I mean, the Camry has always been like this. It's always been a mid-sized vehicle. You've had 4 doors here, seating for 5 people. Of course, they've always had the latest, some great detailing like you see on the rear tail lights here. Now this one's dressed up a little bit, but a lot of them do always look fairly contemporary at the time. You have well-wearing handles. They never break off and cost you 10 arms and 3 legs. The interior is always well-wearing, not the flashiest, not the coolest or the stylish or the technologically advanced, but it is in fact made to wear a long time. The parts and materials are easy wearing, and of course everything's just very robust. Mirrors are very solid. Even if you run into it, it's not going to snap off. And of course the front end, you always have latest technology shining the brighting light at the front end for you. Now back in 2012, this vehicle came with the hybrid, and that's what a lot of people were satisfied with, because it had the naturally aspirated 4-cylinder engine, similar to what this has. This is the SE. It's still a very similar generational engine, which was ultra cheap to maintain and ultra reliable. And that little 4-cylinder engine was strapped together to a CVT transmission, which meant that it was constantly spinning around on a set of shifts and pulleys. You never had to shift gears. It was very simple and quiet and unobtrusive. While the engine was slightly buzzy and it wasn't the best performer, combined CVT with the engine would produce about 200 horsepower, very similar to the ES300H already further on our list. So a Toyota Camry with the hybrid has always been a class favorite, and people just love to have them around. And the second last vehicle that crushes it in owner satisfaction, and yes, to the point where it's 36.5% of the owners have kept these the full duration. That's right, 10 years ago, and they're still driving them today. Why is that? Well, you basically have luxury car amenities like a Lexus wrapped up in Toyota car capabilities. So what I'd offer is basically we're talking about the Toyota Avalon hybrid. Now what that is a 2.5 liter naturally aspirated 4-banger coupled up to a CVT, as well as you've got electric drive there. That totals 203 horsepower driven to the front wheels, as opposed to Lexus changes things up a little bit. It literally has all of the luxury amenities in 2 trim levels, the base and the limited. And the limited feels every bit as good as a modern day Lexus. As a matter of fact, the Lexus ES is the closest thing to this, although an ES is slightly smaller, uses more fuel, and costs more money. So you're almost better going with the Toyota Avalon. You have all of the greatest tech, and that's why people love these. They're just so easy to live with. They're luxurious without worrying about the badges, upfront cost, service costs, as well as maintenance. And the last, most satisfactory SUV that most people would keep well beyond 10 years is this. No, it's actually not. It's this. Right here, we have a Toyota Highlander. Yes, this is the most kept vehicle after 10 years by consumers satisfied with its overall driving experience. Would you believe this vehicle comes with a 3.5 liter V6 and a hybrid attached to it? Yes, the hybrid is the popular version of this Toyota Highlander. In fact, it keeps as many as the 38% of the original owners holding on to this vehicle for over 10 years because they loved it so much. It performs well with 280 horsepower, has all kinds of stability management programs and electrical safety technology. You have 3-row seating here, which is great for this growing family, but it has awesome fuel economy with the hybrid. Yes, it does get coupled up to a CVT, which isn't my personal favorite, the continually variable transmission, but it all works very seamlessly together. The point is, this vehicle is easy to own for the long term, and that's why it's one of the class favorites. And with all of that said, check it out right there. How about 2024's best vehicles of the year? Hope to see each and every one of you on the next one. We'll see you real soon. Bye-bye.